The Persian Gulf War of 1990 to 1991 stands as a pivotal moment in military history, marking the transition from Cold War-era conflict to a new age of technologically sophisticated warfare. This conflict, triggered by Iraq's invasion of Kuwait on August 2, 1990, would demonstrate how modern military technology, strategic deception, and international coalition building could achieve decisive victory with minimal casualties among coalition forces. The war showcased the emergence of precision-guided munitions, stealth technology, and digital battlefield management systems that would define military operations for decades to come. At its core, the Gulf War represented a clash between Saddam Hussein's regional ambitions and the international community's commitment to sovereign integrity and economic stability. Iraq's invasion of Kuwait threatened not only a small nation's existence, but also global oil supplies and the post-Cold War international order. The United States, leading a broad coalition of 35 nations operating under United Nations authorization, responded with Operation Desert Shield to defend Saudi Arabia, followed by Operation Desert Storm to liberate Kuwait. The conflict's brevity, with ground operations lasting merely 100 hours, belied the months of meticulous planning, technological preparation, and strategic deception that preceded it. General Norman Schwarzkopf, commanding the coalition forces, orchestrated what many military historians consider one of history's most successful military campaigns. His left hook strategy, combined with extensive deception operations, caught Iraqi forces completely off guard and led to their rapid collapse. This examination explores the multifaceted dimensions of the Gulf War, from Saddam Hussein's miscalculations and economic desperation to the coalition's technological superiority and strategic brilliance. It analyzes how lessons learned from Vietnam shaped American military doctrine, how modern warfare technologies revolutionized combat operations, and why political considerations ultimately prevented coalition forces from marching to Baghdad. The Gulf War was not merely a military victory. It represented a fundamental transformation in how wars would be fought, won, and justified in the emerging global order. The Persian Gulf War emerged from a complex web of economic pressures, regional ambitions, and miscalculated strategies. Iraq, having emerged from 8 years of devastating war with Iran, 1980 to 1988, found itself in severe economic distress. The conflict with Iran had cost Iraq approximately $500 billion and left the nation with debts exceeding $80 billion. Saddam Hussein, who had borrowed extensively from Kuwait and Saudi Arabia during the Iran-Iraq War, now faced creditors demanding repayment while oil prices remained low, strangling Iraq's primary revenue source. The invasion of Kuwait represented Saddam's attempt to solve multiple problems simultaneously: eliminate debt obligations to Kuwait, seize Kuwait's vast oil reserves, gain control of strategic ports, and position Iraq as the dominant power in the Persian Gulf region. However, this gambit would prove to be one of history's most catastrophic strategic miscalculations, transforming Iraq from a regional power into an international pariah and triggering a military response that would devastate Iraqi forces. The Left Hook Plan. General H. Norman Schwarzkopf's operational masterpiece, known as the Left Hook, represented a departure from conventional military thinking. Rather than launching a direct assault against Kuwait's heavily fortified southern border, where Iraqi forces expected the main attack, Schwarzkopf devised a massive flanking maneuver through the western desert. This strategy involved secretly repositioning nearly 250,000 troops and thousands of vehicles westward along the Saudi-Iraqi border, creating a colossal sweeping movement that would envelop Iraqi forces from the west and north. The plan's genius lay in its simplicity and audacity. While Iraqi commanders focused on defending against an anticipated amphibious assault from the Persian Gulf and ground attacks from southern Kuwait, coalition forces would race through lightly defended desert terrain, cutting off Iraqi supply lines and escape routes. The left hook would strike deep into Iraq, bypassing the heavily fortified Saddam line of defensive positions and catching Iraqi forces in a massive pincer movement. This strategy required extensive logistical preparation, including the establishment of forward operating bases, massive fuel and ammunition stockpiles, and the creation of entirely new supply routes through previously unmapped desert terrain. Oil theft accusations. Among Saddam Hussein's justifications for invading Kuwait was the accusation that Kuwait had been conducting slant drilling, angling oil drills from Kuwaiti territory into the Rumaila oil field that straddled the Iraq-Kuwait border. Iraqi officials claimed that Kuwait had stolen approximately $2.4 billion worth of Iraqi oil through this practice. Additionally, Saddam accused Kuwait of deliberately overproducing oil beyond OPEC quotas, driving down global oil prices and costing Iraq billions in lost revenue. These accusations, while serving as propaganda justifications, contained elements of legitimate economic grievance mixed with exaggeration. The Rumaila field dispute was real, though international arbitration would have been the appropriate resolution mechanism. The oil overproduction issue reflected genuine tensions within OPEC, where Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates were exceeding production quotas, contributing to an oil glut that depressed prices from $21 per barrel in January 1990 to approximately $11 per barrel by July. For Iraq, each dollar drop in oil prices meant roughly $1 billion in annual lost revenue, a devastating blow to a war-ravaged economy desperately needing reconstruction funds. Saddam's economic justifications and debt crisis, Iraq's economic situation in 1990 was dire. The 8-year war with Iran had shattered infrastructure, decimated the economy, and created a generation of casualties. Despite possessing the world's second-largest proven oil reserves, Iraq struggled under the weight of war debts estimated between $80 to $100 billion. Approximately $40 billion was owed to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, which Saddam argued should be forgiven as gratitude for Iraq's role in defending Arab interests against Iranian expansion. Kuwait's refusal to forgive these debts and its insistence on repayment enraged Saddam. From his perspective, Iraq had served as a bulwark, protecting the wealthy Gulf monarchies from revolutionary Iran. Now, these same nations demanded repayment, while simultaneously driving down oil prices through overproduction, making debt repayment impossible. This economic squeeze created a sense of desperation in Baghdad, where Saddam faced the prospect of either defaulting on debts, implementing devastating austerity measures, or seeking alternative solutions to his financial crisis. The seizure of Kuwait offered an attractive solution. It would eliminate $15 billion in debt to Kuwait immediately, provide control over Kuwait's $100 billion in overseas investments, and give Iraq control of approximately 20% of OPEC's oil production capacity. With enhanced oil revenues and eliminated debt obligations, Saddam envisioned restoring Iraq's economy and cementing his position as the Arab world's dominant leader. Saddam's strategic miscalculation. Saddam Hussein's decision to invade Kuwait rested on several fundamental miscalculations about international response, American resolve, and regional politics. First, he misread American signals. A meeting between Saddam and U.S. Ambassador April Glaspie on July 25, 1990, 8 days before the invasion, left him with the impression that the United States considered Iraq's border dispute with Kuwait an internal Arab matter. Glaspie's statement that "we have no opinion on Arab-Arab conflicts" was interpreted by Saddam as tacit approval, or at least indifference, to military action against Kuwait. Second, Saddam underestimated international unity and the end of Cold War dynamics. He expected the Soviet Union, traditionally Iraq's patron, to provide diplomatic cover at the United Nations Security Council. However, the Soviet Union, undergoing radical transformation under Mikhail Gorbachev, chose cooperation with the West over traditional client relationships. This left Iraq internationally isolated in a way that would have been impossible during the Cold War. Third, Saddam misjudged Arab solidarity. He anticipated that Arab nations would oppose Western military intervention in the region, viewing it as neo-colonialism. Instead, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Syria, and several Gulf states joined the coalition against Iraq. The presence of Arab forces in the coalition undermined Saddam's attempts to frame the conflict as Arabs versus Western imperialism. Finally, Saddam overestimated his military capabilities and underestimated the technological revolution in American warfare. His confidence rested on Iraq's million-man army, battle-hardened from the Iran-Iraq War, and the assumption that Western democracies lacked the stomach for casualties that guerrilla-style urban warfare might produce. He failed to anticipate how precision weapons, stealth technology, and overwhelming air superiority would neutralize numerical advantages and devastate Iraqi forces before ground combat even began. Kuwait's invasion, August 2, 1990. In the pre-dawn darkness of August 2, 1990, Iraqi Republican Guard divisions crossed into Kuwait. The invasion force numbered approximately 100,000 troops, supported by 700 tanks. Kuwait's military, consisting of only 16,000 troops, was quickly overwhelmed despite fierce resistance from some units. Within 12 hours, Iraqi forces controlled most of Kuwait City. The Kuwaiti emir, Sheikh Jaber al-Ahmad al-Sabah, escaped to Saudi Arabia, establishing a government in exile. The invasion was marked by brutal efficiency. Iraqi forces secured oil fields, government buildings, airports, and communication facilities. Resistance was crushed with overwhelming force. Within 48 hours, Saddam declared Kuwait to be Iraq's 19th province, installing a puppet government before formally annexing the nation. Iraqi troops began systematic looting of Kuwait, removing everything from gold reserves and museum artifacts to hospital equipment and private property. This pillaging would later be documented as one of the most extensive organized thefts in modern history. The international response was swift and unequivocal. On the day of invasion, the United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 660, condemning the invasion and demanding immediate withdrawal. Economic sanctions followed quickly, with Resolution 661 on August 6th, imposing comprehensive sanctions on Iraq. Within days, President George H.W. Bush declared, "This will not stand," signaling American determination to reverse the aggression. Three major threats to world order. The Iraqi invasion of Kuwait posed three distinct but interconnected threats to the emerging post-Cold War international order. First, it represented a fundamental challenge to the principle of national sovereignty and the prohibition against wars of territorial conquest. The United Nations system, established after World War II, was predicated on the notion that international borders were sacrosanct and that territorial disputes must be resolved peacefully. Allowing Iraq's annexation of Kuwait to stand would undermine this principle, potentially encouraging other nations to pursue territorial ambitions through military force.